Hello, Formula One fans. Welcome back to your favourite Formula One podcast with me, Dan, and my co-host, Alex, who has now moved to the other side of the world and is in America. We are here to talk about the best thing that happened yesterday in the world of Formula One. F175 live at the O2, sponsored by Jack Hall, bought to you in association with MasterCard and Cash App and Home Bargains. But did you enjoy it, mate? How are you as well? How was the time? Did you watch it live or did you have to catch up? Were you working?
I didn't watch it live. No, I didn't watch it live. I had a couple of messages from a couple of people that scared me from the start because the messages were not immediately positive. So no, I had to catch up on it. I watched most of it. I couldn't bring myself to watch all of it because some of it was painful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've both got some thoughts on it. On what appeared to be the coldest warehouse in Britain, based on the fact that Lando had put like his big stadium arena,
or is it an arena? We still don't know.
Lando had put his like outer jacket over the top of his suit for one of his interviews, and I'm amazed that a PR person goes like, "Lando, fine for afterwards. I'm going to hold your big coat while you talk to Mr. Whitehall," and like. There were like David Coulthard was wearing his scarf the whole time. That man, by the way, is a snappy dresser. But let's take the scarf off inside, David. But no, it happened, and now we're going to talk about it. And we've got some paint chat to do as well, which is our favourite of all things.
But you know, I was thinking about paint this morning whilst I was having a shower, and I think for us, and I think for a lot of other kind of F1 plebs, I think is probably what we can describe ourselves as. Is that is a tangible thing that a normal person can look at and actually have an opinion on it. We could never look at a technical directive or a brochure of a new Formula One car and go, we see the reason why they've changed the rear dampers by 0.5 degrees is so that the ride height then is increased by 0.34% of a millimeter, which then will help stop the porpoising to go down the back straight at Silverstone. And then therefore that will kind of help them save a third of a tenth of a second in a pit stop type situation. We can't do that, but what we can do is we can look at colours and we can go, I like that, or we can go, that's shit. And we've got 10 of those to be able to go through and do that. I'm sure this whole episode will probably just go through as F175 did. It was such a good, organised, well thought out first ever. Do you know what it felt like? It felt like they hadn't even done a trial or dummy run of it, that they just kind of went, we're just going to go live. And we'll just see what happens. It kind of felt like they got a bunch of interns to do some of the audio stuff, that they got some weird kind of Squid Games extras standing around doing some bits. They picked up some people from like out the back of the subway at the O2 to do a few dances. And they just kind of went, well, we'll just stick it together and it'll be fine. But my first question is why did they not have a little pop-up thingy for Machine Gun Kelly? And because I'm terrible, and I know Machine Gun Kelly will be recognisable to a lot of people, but the best thing that F1 do when they post on Instagram and they say, the celebs graced the grid today, is they tag them in it. And so I can I can press the little person on Instagram and I can go, all right. Or I can go, no, still no idea. And that's helpful. I had no idea.
Yeah, and I mean, he's got history with F1 as well, the old MGK, because when he was on the grid, I can't remember which Grand Prix it was at, but one of the Grand Prix last year, he was there and did a terrible grid walk with Mr. Brundle. And everyone kind of went, well, this guy's an absolute dick. And then F1 went, get him back for the big launch. But no, look, they also love generally a super F1. They love to put the little lower third pop-up that tells you anyone's name mid-race. Yeah.
10
Never
second
mind
penalty.
the fact they're going 3 wide through cops. Let's cut away briefly to show this celebrity and have him on the screen for slightly too long. Speaking of being slightly on the screen for slightly too long, Machine Gun Kelly. I didn't need that to be like 12 minutes of the experience. A single song would have done. I know you've got to get value out of the bloke, but just the one thanks machine.
Did anybody and this is the same for Kane Brown as well. I assume he was there because Haas wanted him to do the voiceover thing and they just kind of shipped him over to do the same thing. I quite like Kane Brown, but on both of those performances, I didn't actually get the impression that anybody in the audience at all had any interest in anything that happened other than booing Christian Horner, which we'll get to. I don't think the crowd did anything all night. Like, surely by courtesy that you would applaud Machine Gun Kelly off the stage at the end of his 10-minute set or whatever it was, and just kind of go, yeah, that was good. Nothing.
I think the problem, and this is an inherent problem with F175, and if they do an F176, I'm sure it'll be exactly the same. But the normies were a long way away because they were in the banked seating, and then in the middle you had all the poshos and the drivers that didn't want to be there, and the team representatives and the people that were paid to be there. So the people that would actually react were a long way away from, I assume, any microphones, because you couldn't really even see the crowd. There were a couple of shots I know where they went like into the crowd, but they didn't really make any effort of including the fact that there were however many thousand people there and that it sold out immediately and that it's F1 fans and stuff. So I think that's part of it. The audio mixing for F175 was horrific from start to finish, though, because it was as if they just had one Atmos microphone that they stuck on top of their big moving shower curtain with its lights on it, and then that took all of the audio for the entire event, because half the time you couldn't fully hear the interview being said, and then sometimes the music wasn't mixed properly, and then there was a video that barely had, that fully narrated video that didn't really have audio, and it's like, guys, get yourself a clean feed out to YouTube, and I don't need the PA speaker version of your audio because it's making it very hard to follow along what's going on. Maybe they said Machine Gun Kelly's name a million times and we just couldn't hear it on the mixing.
Maybe, we don't know. I mean, Jack Whitehall did the compare, is that what it's called? I think whatever it's called, the hosting type thing. Yeah, he was fine. He's Jack Whitehall. He did Jack Whitehall things.
Yes, and it was exactly what you expected.
At moments, I did laugh out loud. There were some funny bits that I went, yeah, that's amusing. Again, no idea whether the crowd liked it, no idea whether anybody there liked it or not. But I, at a few moments, sat on the sofa and went, that's quite funny. What did you think? The history recap came next, didn't it? As if kind of this is what's happened to Formula One over 75 years. And I guess this is a question for you, being a relative newbie. Obviously, I didn't watch Formula One in the 1950s, so I can't compare. But I've looked at books and read things and stuff. Did you find that interesting? Did you find that kind of evocative? Did it add any benefit to you? Did you want more of it or less of it, or what did you think about that? I mean, I liked it.
It was fine as a hype reel. I don't feel like I know any more now having watched it, because it was obviously very sizzle reel style. Like, it was very quick. It wasn't intended to be documentary or whatever. It was a hype reel. So I was sort of watching it, and the cars go like flying past the old school ones, and there's some old guys. I'm like, hey, I've seen you before on some pictures and on a vintage T-shirt in Urban Outfitters. Like, I understand who you are. But it was. I didn't feel more hyped afterwards. I didn't feel less hyped afterwards. I don't know more about the history of F1. I don't know less about the history of F1. And it was exactly the kind of thing that I expected them to do, and it was nicely cut together. I think for the most part, it was sort of well produced, but no, it didn't drum up sort of a massive amount of feelings. I was kind of thinking, where's the paint? Let's show the car. Yeah, show the cars, please, guys. We're 25 minutes in.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of how I felt. Like I looked at it and I went, I don't understand how you're going to fill 2 hours of airtime here to kind of fill this space.
Because I obviously watched it back, the recorded version on YouTube.
Yeah.
And it was a jump scare seeing 2:00. I'm like, I beg your pardon?
Yeah.
There's only 10 cars. And okay. And there was no real filler. I mean, there was a lot of filler, but there was no real filler. Like, as you said before, it was quite regimented. And now we're doing this next thing, and now we're doing this next thing. They went bang, bang, bang. Oh boy.
Yeah, I mean, I feel, I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I feel, being the 75th anniversary, I think there's a really good opportunity to provide more information to fans of the sport for the last 5 years, to kind of go, this is actually what happened even 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. This is what it sounded like. These are the names, these are the moments, these are some of the tracks we went to. And I think that could be really cool and a great opportunity to do that. But as you said, it was very much kind of a hype reel that was very much kind of like, get it done, bang, 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 cars. And we did finally get a car, but not after we had about a 5-minute kind of ridiculous acid trip intro from the car that finished absolutely plumb last on the grid last year. And we finally got to see a stake or a Kick or a Sauber or whatever name they're going to run under. So we can talk about paint now because we've seen one. Get in the state. What did you think about it?
It's really nice this year. I mean, I absolutely slated it last year. I thought they had one of the cooler color schemes on the grid, and they absolutely shat the bed with it. But the stake this year is actually good. Like it's a bit basic. It's a green gradient that goes into an otherwise entirely black car, but it's nice looking, and it's better than last year's one was, and it actually looks a little bit more like a livery. Last year's looked a little bit more like they kind of forgot what shape a car was. Yeah, I don't know what Stake's fascination is with a giant moon. They've done that in a few things now. They did that on some social stuff. Why is the moon massive, and why are you so obsessed with the moon? But crack on. It was, it's an upgrade, which is not, I can't say the same for everyone.
Yeah, I was worried about the rest of my evening when it took that long to provide us with a stake, and rightfully worried, I think. And I've actually put here in capital letters, this could drag as an evening.
Oh, yeah.
And it did.
Oh, yeah.
So I was right, and I'm really happy about that. Yeah, the livery is better than it was last year. It still feels like a base game livery that the designer has stumbled across a good hex code for half of the car, and they've just kind of gone, yeah, it's all right. I've got half of it right, nice, lovely, and I'll forget about the back end. They didn't buy Podium Pass over the winter. They didn't kind of give ourselves a few other kind of opportunities. No Bitcoin, no other kind of spaces to put some decals and some extra colorways. It's going to be a theme all the way through it, but I just in a world of dark cars, be a shining light. If you've got nothing else to play for, give us more fluoro green.
Yeah.
Don't just give us the front like third of it and then fade it out into a charcoal grey. It does look smart, but you've got something there in comparison. Everybody else make yourself look different, and they didn't. It's an improvement, but yeah, it's still very base game.
Yeah. Speaking of base game, Williams kind of gave up with their livery this year and just made the whole thing a single colour of blue and cracked on.
They've still got the Duracell.
They've still got the Duracell, so they're always going to win points for that. Yeah. It's just blue. They've had some nice liveries in recent years. They've always been a little bit safe on liveries, Williams. They never go particularly all out on that. And again, maybe one thing that didn't go well about a paint reveal event is that it was quite hard to actually see the cars a lot of the time. Either because they were spinning on top of a block, or the lighting was weird, or we'll get to it with Red Bull, they had 80, people without a home running around on either side of it that you couldn't actually see the car. So I think the Williams is just a single tone of blue this year without, I don't think there's a Union Jackie bit or anything anymore. I don't think there's any sort of wobbita-wobbitas. I think it's just kind of, we dipped the car in paint. It's a nice blue, I think. Maybe from what I saw, it was behind a whole bunch of lights and stuff. But I think it's fine.
Yeah, I was the few notes that I made on this. I thought it was a really nice touch to hear some Frank Williams narration over the intro thing. I like the fact that Williams decided that they were still a Formula One team and not like a design and arts college like Stake were, and put together all of their work in some amateur dramatic type thing. They went, here's a bit of history. Here's the car.
Here's James Vowles.
Exactly. James Vowles, though. I mean, get him headlining Glastonbury. What a hype man he is walking out onto stage. I thought the car looked really nice. I thought the intro length thingy, as I've said, was perfect. And then I don't understand why whatever that influencer was that did a bit of introductory type conversation with James and Carlos and Alex suddenly said, James, I hear you want to take a selfie or something. And then have that very long 5-second pause where they looked at one another, and you could see it on James Vowles' face, and he went, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
James Vowles had built up so much aura through the first 80% of the Williams launch. He's come out with his trainers on, looking like your dad that's all hyped up, and he's giving it the big hello London. It's like, I never thought I would hear James Vowles do a stage run out. Good evening, London. How you doing? And then all of that just fizzled away immediately when when he failed to unlock his phone the first time round, went to take his over. Oh no, shit, my phone's still locked. Hang on, we'll do another one. And then they just kind of rotated And I don't know if he took a picture at any point or if it was a video, but he kind of just seemed to start rotating wildly. I think he realised that there were two people he was trying to get in the picture.
Yeah.
But I love James Vowles, and I will never hear a bad word about him. He is objectively hilarious in such a wholesome way. And he just speaks so nicely. And as much as I joke about, like, here's your hype man, James Vowles, and his aura and whatever, the bloke did command an entire arena of people with the confidence of a bloke that used to just sit on a bar stool on a pit wall and tell one of his drivers he wasn't good enough. So, well done, Williams. I think Williams were one of the better ones.
Yeah, I think so. They then obviously went kind of influencer from the 5 year ago manual to kind of go, wow, let's take a selfie, because that's still a new thing. If anything, I'm surprised they didn't bring out a selfie stick for James Vowles as well. And then we went to another influencer who was trying to get people to say the word VCARB. Yeah, fuck me, did that feel like a try-hard kind of introduction to something. And then after all of that, then they stood on stage and tried to count down for 10 seconds. We don't need another 10 seconds, Michael, or whoever your name was. Just get on with the bloody thing. You've wasted 3 minutes of my life anyway. We don't need another 10 seconds. And then don't be surprised the fact that the crowd don't join in with you going 10, 9, 8, whatever. But having said all of that, Jesus Christ, this car looks cool. It's unbelievably good. I've got a couple of points about it. One, I think it looks so good because, as I said about Stake, in a world of plain, dark cars, this stands out and it's bright. Objectionally, is it amazing? I don't know, but it's amazing because everything else is very dark. And the other thing as well is we are just another step closer to Red Bull running 4 cars on the grid in 2028, because you're not even trying to hide the fact it's not a Red Bull anymore.
Yeah, objectively, the RB is a banger this year. We'll get that out of the way. First of all, it is the best livery on the grid this year,
100%.
by some distance. The little Red Bulls that form that little gradient thing at the back, really cute. And then you go, the roll hoop bit and the front of the wing is the same as the big boy Red Bull now, like 1 for 1. But you know what? Good on you guys for finally stopping trying to hide it. You know, there's a value in RB coming out and going, oh yeah, no, we are the second Red Bull and we will absolutely get out of the way of the other team if they need us to. But it's better, I think, that they be blatant with it, as opposed to everyone knowing and them trying to act like there's something that they're not. Like, at least they just went, this is us, up and about. What I will say, Isaac Hajar is an incredibly awkward individual. He seems like the work experience kid that they're like, hey, do you want to have a little go on the stage as well? And he did not carry a huge amount of aura there, but he didn't need to because the car behind them was very sexy. It's absolute influencer wank, but in the lead up to that, and once they got on the stage, and for like 90% of their reveal, each team got 10 minutes for this. Let's make that like a round 4 next year if we do this again. I think let's really, because you could tell that a lot of the teams were trying to fill air. They were going, shit, we got 10 minutes and we have to use our 10 minutes. I know. Let's just go do a Vox Pop section with an influencer in London. That's a great idea.
I wonder how they must be limited to a point as to kind of, you need to take the stage down, take the car off, put the new car on. So, and I mean, that can't be right, we're going to get that done in 2 minutes because they're going to spend 4 minutes doing an intro type thing. So I kind of get it. But at the same time, I don't want to see a 10-minute intro to a car that I already know what it's going to look like. So, but best car on the grid by a distance.
Yep. As long as it stays that way. I am nervous for the RB.
I mean, by Spain, it could be blue as well.
But if they try and save on that and strip some paint off, that livery is going to turn to junk really quickly. Because like you said, it is pretty because it's entirely painted. God, amazing what happens when you actually paint the entirety of the car. And if they start trying to trim paint off that, it could go downhill really quickly.
I mean, I don't think paint's going to be their big problem.
No. No, I think they've
But
got larger issues.
there we go. Haas, America's team.
America's team, and didn't they lean into that?
Hell yeah, they did.
I skipped through the musical act. I can't remember his name.
Kane Brown, I quite like him.
Oh, hey, he's got a lovely voice. I just wanted to see some paint. Just put the paint on the car, bro.
Hey, completely fine. Again, though, for a lot of people that wouldn't have known who Kane Brown was, I don't know why they didn't pop their name up on the screen.
No, they got one announcement at the start, and then Jeff Whitehall yelled his name, and then that was it. It's another good-looking car, though. Fair play.
Yeah.
Oh. It's sharp. It's boring-ish, but it's sharp, and I think the fact that it's largely white again helps. I don't really know why they haven't made the Haas on the side red. I felt like that would have gone a bit like. But yeah, it's a nice looking car. Bearing in mind that they had a Russian flag car like 5 years ago, they've come quite a long way. Have our Haas boys.
I think that was one thing that I'd forgotten actually when they did that kind of intro, and I didn't realize that this was the 10th year that Haas had been in Formula One, and I didn't really give them the credit. And I know they haven't been over the last, say, 2 seasons, but how successful they have actually been for that kind of midfield team and what they achieved when they started. I had to have the 24 and the 25 cars side by side to actually see that they'd changed anything. And
yeah, it's a refinement.
They have a little bit, and it's not a massive difference, which is kind of what we expected all 10 teams were going to do anyway. So it's not exactly a disappointment as such. I do wonder, it's always been Haas's colours, I believe, even in like IndyCar and NASCAR, has been that kind of red, grey, white. But again, if you're going to go for that American thing, go for the Cota livery, go for the Eagles and the Stars and Stripes, and just go whole hog at it. Like, I think part of the weight allowance for the Formula One car should be for tins of Dulux paint.
I think we talked about this last year as well when we were in the midst of the big carbon crisis. I think the sport would be, for a sport that's so concerned about image, F1 would be better if they mandated, or like they do with the driver weight, that the driver is 80 kilos or whatever it is, and if your driver weighs less than that, spunk a load of water in the car until it gets to 80 kilos.
Yeah.
What's wrong with them painting an entire car or wrapping it in vinyl or whatever, taking it all off, weighing how much that was, and going, right, sweet, plus half a kilo.
That's our ballast or whatever.
It must weigh this much, however you get to that. But they won't do it. Ollie Behrman's adorable. Every time I see Ollie Behrman, he gets more adorable. He looks
younger.
Every time you see him, he gets taller and younger.
Like, who is this child?
And he walked around with the most, I think he had the biggest, this is really cool energy of anyone. You could see him genuinely walking around looking like into the rafters, and he was, maybe he was what F175 was for. But he genuinely, just seemed to actually be soaking it in. I don't know if you saw with Esteban Ocon, but he was bouncing. He was doing like little skips and stuff, like not even in the stagey bit. Like as they were finished and they were walking away and the shower curtain was coming down around him, he was up on his toes. It's like, oh, Esteban, you're having a great day.
Probably the only time he's going to taste champagne this year, so why not make the most of it?
I have one thing actually about F175. Who signed off on the idea that we'll slide cars out on a trolley? Because it just looked like they've DNF'd. Like the one that came out of the floor, great, that's a dramatic reveal. But when you've got them on this platform that looks like the top of a low loader that has lost its wheels and you're sliding it forward, it just looks like the car's about to have the sheet put back on it because Sergio Perez has put it in the wall at Monaco again. So I don't know where they came up with that concept. I think it's probably because they had to alternate, like, we need half the cars in this back room and half the cars under the stage because they can't all fit under the stage. But some of them got screwed with having to roll, like stakes just slowly rolling out down the length of the runway while they, too much rolling.
It kind of feels, with the benefit of hindsight, and I realise the UK in the middle of February isn't the greatest place to do anything outside, but if they'd have built some form of temporary stadium around the start-finish line of Silverstone or something, and I know, again, it would have had to have been in the daylight and it would have had been sunny and all this other stuff, but you could have actually had the car come out of the last corner, do a few little burnouts and some little, like, rev the engine and then roll onto the grid like they would do for the thingy. Then they could have just peeled it off behind the pit wall at the end of their set or whatever and said, "Oh, brilliant, lovely, thanks very much." It did feel like a bit of a missed opportunity of the fact that of a sport that is so quick and so noisy and smelly and all this other stuff that, as you said, it was literally like rolled out on, I assume, remote controlled dollies.
Yeah.
But they're not going to be able to drive out across the stage of an O2 because one, health and safety, crashing into a crowd of people is probably going to be quite expensive. And two, if they put their foot down, it would probably tear the stage apart as well. But yeah, I don't know. That was just a thought in hindsight. And the other thing I saw on Twitter as well, or X or whatever it's called now, is somebody, I think it was called Dave, just said that like this feels like a shit Eurovision.
Yeah, it did. And Alpine has not helped that vibe.
No.
Alpine, what were you doing?
I don't know.
Easy peeps. You've got an old bloke in a bin bag to stand there pretending to DJ for 9.5 minutes, and then you remembered you had to show a car, and then you showed a car that was actually quite nice. But how did it... It was the most awkward thing of this bloke stood there alone with no backing dancers, no stage presence. He had come dressed as a stack of Pirelli tyres, and he's not DJing, and there was no logic to what he was DJing. He wasn't dropping in sound bites of famous Alpine engineers. It wasn't, there was no neons that he put in. It wasn't an F1 themed remix. It was just a dude that had pressed play on Spotify, and then he bopped about while no one else had fun. And then Ollie Oakes came out and said literally 2 words, and then they all went home. It's like, oh, that was the absolute... I think they were the worst. Their presentation was the worst of the night for me. Horrific.
Yeah, I sat there after about 5 minutes wondering where and why the DJ had turned up. And then it suddenly panned to a bit of a wide angle thing, and there was like some pink strobes flying about on the lights above him, and I suddenly went, I was like, oh, this must be the Alpine bit then.
Yeah.
And then, as you say, then there was just a car. Going back to Haas really quickly, and I missed this in my notes, with all that kind of montage and mashup of music that they'd used, there was one in particular that, obviously, I spend quite a lot of time editing content and scrolling through various royalty-free or licensed music tracks. And there was a song going. And because I listened to so much of this, I suddenly went, I know that song. I've used that song in my edits. I was sat there going, they've just been on Epidemic Sound and just bought a license for a couple of quid for a bit of music for their intro.
They can't afford a main license.
Mental. I was sat there, this is bonkers. Anyway, but then obviously it got worse and the DJ turned up. And do I like the Alpine? I think it's objectively worse than last year. I think the pink and that particular shade of blue don't work as well as what they did.
Different blue.
It's more of the Alpine kind of road car, like the racing colour of France, I think, than what it has been in the last couple of years. And I don't necessarily know if it tickles me the right way. And the other thing, and I circle right back to when we spoke about steak, in a world of dull cars, be bright, be more
Make it all pink.
Or make it really bright blue as well. Just give us some balls to the wall colour. I saw somebody drop me a message the other day and they were like, oh, I forgot how colourful the cars were, like in the 2000s. And they sent a little image for it. And you had like, obviously the bright red Ferrari, the proper red Ferrari. Yeah. You had the silver McLaren. You had the white and blue Williams. You had the sky turquoisey blue Benetton. You had a white BAR. You had a bright yellow Jordan, a bright orange Arrows, a turquoise and sky blue Sauber, a bright green Jaguar, a fluorescent yellow Minardi, and then like a bright dark blue Prost. And now we're sitting around with different shades of carbon fiber and a bit of black and a bit of navy blue here and there. But yeah, just give me colour, man. Override my senses.
I feel like, though, it's harsh a little bit on Alpine because the whole car appeared painted. If we're talking step ups and down from last year, it's a bit flat, I'll say that. And I had written that down, that it could have done with some wobbita-wobbitas, right? It's at the minute, they've picked their solid base colour and they've put some pink accents on it. And it could have done with some flowies or some sparklies or something. But at least they painted the whole thing. And it's not quite where they got to with the pink at the end of last year, but admittedly that was pink and black. But at least there's seemingly more permanent pink this year. They also didn't talk about, and whether that's because the FIA said they were only allowed one, but they didn't talk about having a special. They usually start the first 3 rounds with an all pink boy, but haven't this year. Whether or not that's because we're not starting at Bahrain, maybe that's a Bahrain tie-in. I don't know, but I got the sense with Alpine that they forgot that they had 10 minutes until the very last bit and thought that maybe F1 was going to do most of it and they just had to show the car. And then they went, well, Brian DJ, should we get Brian?
Yeah.
Brian from Parts knows how to DJ. We'll just get Brian in. We'll get Brian. Brian will sort it. And then they just let him run with it.
Balloons for the balloon animals as well? No, not this time. Not this time. What about the top hat for the magic trick? No. Just the DJ bit.
Just the DJ, please. Just the DJ. The absolute highlight of the night came next. The absolute best bit.
I'm so interested to hear because I've got my highlight of the night next after the Alpine bit as well. So go on, hit me.
Has there ever been a better moment in Formula One than the merest mention of the FIA at an official Formula One event and the entire stadium booing and the presenter not knowing what to do with herself? Fair play. I think it's Laura Winter. She's handled it well. She's had a little smirk. She's taken it in her stride and she's rolled on. She's realised they're not booing me, they're booing the FIA. You're not going to see that often in a sport where the mere presence of a logo gets booed by the fans of the same sport at an official event for that sport. I sat there audibly laughing. That was brilliant. Well done, London. You've done me proud.
Nice to hear the crowd was there, which I didn't hear after the words, because obviously this in this 75th anniversary. I believe also Pirelli are going to be celebrating their 500th Grand Prix.
Congratulations!
And out of nowhere, the words that I never thought I would hear mentioned in my entire life was, "Let's give it up for Pirelli," which was met with suitable silence from the crowd. So the booing of the FIA at least provides me with some kind of comfort of the fact that people were actually there and it wasn't just a bunch of... Do you remember like the COVID football games where they would sell you the opportunity to put a cardboard cutout of yourself behind the goal
and pump the fake sound in?
Points, didn't it? Aston Martin.
Yes.
Aston Martin. This was great. Then it was shit. Then it was great again. And then it was terrible.
Yes. That's a perfect summary.
I felt that I was on like an LSD trip at points. There was James Bond, which I thought, this is smart. It's a bit basic.
Great.
It's a bit simple. It's safe, but you've done it well.
You're the only team that can do a James Bond thing, and you went, you know what? Let's do a Bond thing.
In London. Makes sense. Then there was an orchestra, and I don't know why. Then I've come to the conclusion that the girl that I think was called Thames must be Lawrence's stepdaughter. Because I can see no other reason as to why she would have got a gig to have done that, very similar to his son driving a Formula One car. And then they gave us a car.
Which looks shit.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
I was really, like, fair play to them for having a crack and having a bit of fun with it, you know, and going, we're the Bond people, let's do a Bond thing. I thought it was quite clever having the drivers come in the crowd. That was quite nice, getting them to do, you know, they were the only team that sort of involved the crowd in that way, which when we're talking about the fact we didn't even know the crowd were there, well done.
Some lady got a high five from Fernando.
Fair play as well. Fernando and Lance Stroll got changed into their racing suits, which is why I think we had the orchestra perhaps, but they got changed out of suits and into racing suits quite sharpish. Like, well done.
They did.
And then they showed the car, which is an absolute downgrade on last year.
Yeah.
The Aston used to look quite nice with the flowing yellow bits and the, you know, lovely British racing green, and now it kind of felt like it was 3 liveries kind of slapped together, like the white bit on the top I'm not sure is working, and I don't like it.
Yeah, I think enough of that livery turned into we need to paint it a particular way so that the sponsors stand out on the car, which is something I think will be a talking point a little bit later in this episode as well.
Yes.
But yeah, it was disappointing from Aston Martin. But I'm expecting disappointment from Aston Martin all the while that Lance Stroll's involved. So we then saw the movie thing, didn't we? Which
wasn't a trailer, but was a behind the scenes, but was a trailer, but was behind the scenes.
And I will say, I think the story side of it is going to be wank. but I feel like the cameras and the visuals of it does actually look very cool. I couldn't get past the fact that we're going to be looking at a brand new Formula One team. There's obviously going to be a backstory about Brad Pitt as to how he's got there and the fact he's been in Formula One for ages and stuff. But to see a wrinkled man behind the wheels of a Formula One car after we've seen Ollie Behrman and not Drogovic, Bortoletto and all these youngsters walking out onto the stage that literally look knee-high to a grasshopper. And then we've got like Brad Pitt's 50-year-old wrinkled face stuffed in behind a Bell helmet behind a wheel of a Formula 2 car. I was like, yeah, that bit's not going to fly.
No. And it's just, we're both going to watch it. I think we're both going to watch it expecting it to be shit. And if it's anything better than shit, then it's, they've won. Mercedes, what are you doing at F175? Why have we done the most awkward, slow, botched pit stop to start the event? If you're going to do a show run pit stop, actually get your pit crew to do it, or anyone that's ever held a tyre, because it was very uncomfortable watching clearly just some paid background dancers, probably the same ones that played the drums for Steak, fumble around with a Pirelli tyre.
Do you reckon they got executed by the Squid Game guards backstage? Because obviously what we've seen so far, they've just been executed on the spot. I don't know. It felt like a bunch of extras from Squid Games, didn't it?
It was weird. It was weird. They also went from medium to medium, so they're doing a two-stop strategy, which bold. Yeah. I just didn't get it. Why it was so slow, because it had come out on the little electric trolley as well, and it just. But no, I didn't really see what they were doing with that. I couldn't tell you what the Mercedes looks like because they never actually showed it properly. I don't know if it's black. I don't know if it's silver. I don't know how much green there is on it. We seem to see the car for about 8 seconds from the worst possible angle, so I've got no idea. What I do know is that Mercedes might be the first time ever that losing a sponsor has made the livery worse, because I actually quite liked the Ineos red intake roll hoop rim. It was a nice little flash of something else on otherwise usually a black or silver livery. And now Ineos has got no money, and so now that's gone. And it's just dulled it off a little bit. I don't know, but yeah, I can't actually speak too massively on the Mercedes because I don't know what colour it is.
Yeah, I thought it looked sleek. I thought for the cars that had no real kind of character or colour about them, I thought it looked very business-like. It looked very smart, very professional, which I think is exactly what I expect from Mercedes. And I think that kind of design probably suits George Russell quite nicely as well. Yeah. But he's not the funnest bloke. He's not the most flamboyant bloke in the world. And yeah, I thought from what I did see of it, I thought it looked quite smart. It's probably going to be one of those liveries that's going to look the bollocks under lights in those night races that we have. Is it going to look as great at 2:00 in the afternoon at Catalonia? Probably not, but yeah, it was fine. It was nothing to get excited about. I didn't think, but yeah, it looked fine.
Right. Now I've got opinions on this one, but I know you have opinions on this one as well, so I'll let you start. Yes. Talk to me about Red Bull at F175.
My first point that I wrote down is, why do we keep booing Christian Horner? I definitely kind of look. I've said things and I'm proud of what I've said, and I still stand by what I said about 2021. Would I boo the bloke now? No. Would I boo Max? No. I actually think Max is getting quite an amusing chap, to be fair. But they did have the best introduction song. Obviously, the Rolling Stones, brilliant. They didn't go to Epidemic Sound, so that's a tick in the right box for me. Kind of enjoyed the fact that Christian Horner kind of rised to the crowd and kept poking them a little bit, which I found quite funny with the wording. I thought the actual graphic on the screen was good.
Okay.
Then I'm not quite sure as to why they picked up a bunch of homeless people to come and do a little dance behind Liam and Max. I think one of them at one point touched Max, and Max looked around behind him with a view of, what on earth are you doing?
Don't you dare to do that again.
It's the same car. I knew it was going to be the same car. I think Red Bull could go through the rest of their history in Formula One for however long they want to race, and I don't necessarily think they'll ever change the livery. I think if they don't change the livery for 2026, I think we know that Red Bull are nailed in with this is what they've got as their livery, and that's the whole thing. If they change it because of the spec change, I can see that kind of working. But I think the livery itself, I think it just works.
It's fine.
This wasn't ever going to turn out to be orange, was it? It's smart, and it does exactly what it says it should do. Over to you.
Red Bull annoyed me at F175. Guys, you're not cooler than the event, and you've tried to be cooler than the event. You've tried to act as if, Mum said that you have to go to dinner, so you have to show up and you have to be nice and you have to speak to her friends, and then you can go upstairs. It felt a little bit like they were trying to do the absolute bare minimum that they could to meet the requirements that they've been told they had to meet. I think it's embarrassing that their drivers didn't even stop to say hello. Okay, we get it. Max and the FIA and, Liberty and all the rest of it, they're not busy mates right now. The current reigning world champion of the sport did not speak during the season launch for the next season, when every other driver except for his teammate, including the ones that English is sort of their first and a half language or whatever, all spoke one word, answer one question, stand there, smile, wave. How exciting is it to be here? Really exciting. Sweet. Bye, Liam. That's all we needed. For them to have not even bothered, and it wasn't they ran out of time, it wasn't a technical hiccup, it was by design that Max and Liam were just going to buy, and that's why they did the world's longest intro video about car culture in a chicken shop or some bollocks. I don't think that's a good look for the sport. I don't think that's a good look for Max. I don't think that's a good look for Red Bull. I think it's them trying to be more than they are. I think you need to understand that, you're one of 10 teams. Everyone's got 0 points at the minute, but I think it was bad that we didn't hear from the current world champion. And I think it was relatively telling that on the shower curtain, that people did cool designs and they flashed driver names and whatever. Red Bull just put a really static slate of their sponsors on there and then left it there the entire time. I know F1's a business. Everyone else made that jazzy, and you just went, stick sponsors on it. And you went home.
It's an interesting take, and I think there's merit to it. I wonder. I think they kind of knew the fact that they were going to get booed, and I think that had been spoken about in the fact that Max had kind of. It was either on one of his live streams or something, and he kind of said, "I don't want to go. I don't want to go in front of a British crowd because they don't like me." And I don't know what value it would have added if Max had spoken in the microphone for 30 seconds and just been booed for 30 seconds by a bunch of, by 5,000 paying ticket people up in the bleachers of the O2. I don't know. I mean, that's my thought on it. They could have made a much cooler introduction. They've got so many incredible athletes as part of Red Bull. They've got the bloke that dived from a hot air balloon from space, for Christ's sake. They've got people that can do like triple, quadruple backflips on BMXs off the back of a curb and so many different things. They could have done a lot more. It felt like it was an element of, do we have to? But I think they'd made that very clear from the very beginning as to when it was launched. I think Max had turned around and said, hopefully I was ill or something.
Which is just bad. It's
not a great look.
You're the world champion. Would
he have done it in Holland?
Like this.
If it was in Amsterdam, would he have done it in Amsterdam in front of a Dutch crowd?
Grow up.
Okay, yeah.
F1 is headquartered in London. That's where F1 is. That's where your team is from. Your team is based in London. So many teams are. That's where the office is. Okay, you are going to get booed. Grow up. Do it. It's going to take. It's objectively 10. It's 10 minutes of your day. It has to be 10 minutes. That's what you've got to work with.
Can't believe I'm the one being objectionable back Max Verstappen here as well.
Just suck up and do it.
Grown up, I've matured.
I also feel a little bit bad for Liam. It's his first proper year in F1. It's the big exciting launch. I said before about Ollie Behrman being this, bubbly little puppy, excited child. And I know Liam Lawson's maybe not quite that same personality, but he's been kind of robbed a little bit of some of that experience because his older brother is too cool for it. But
it did kind of look like the
car looked fine.
Yeah, it did kind of look like the older brother had tapped him on the shoulder beforehand and said, "Don't look like you're enjoying this."
Yeah, we don't do this, mate. Wear black. You wear a black hoodie and jeans and, these trainers.
Oh, well.
And then to wrap us up, McLaren.
No, we got two more. You forgot Ferrari.
I've forgotten Ferrari.
Easy to
I've forgotten
forget, to be
Ferrari.
fair. I mean, apart from the fact that they've got a 7-time world champion in the car looks wank, so kind of understand it.
Yeah. I don't know if you ever go on the F1 subreddit. The F1 subreddit is obsessed with HP. Like, there are 2 or 3 posts a day talking about the HP logo, changing the HP logo, photoshopping the HP logo onto cars, off cars, different logos, bigger logos, smaller logos.
I wish I had
HP are
this
laughing
time.
right now because they are the most talked about sponsor among F1 fans. It's not overly sleek, is it?
No.
To be fair, I think the HP logo does look better on a white stripe in terms of actually fitting in as well, because it doesn't, like, red and blue is a little bit of a jar. So
The logo looks better.
that's better. It's not to the benefit of the logo, to the livery as a whole, and they've also gone backwards, in my opinion. A few people disagreed with that when we talked about the Ferrari livery before. They've regressed a little bit, I think, in terms of the actual color of the red. It's gone a little bit darker again. It's a little bit less poppy. That I would have liked a little bit more zing on that.
Yeah, I think the red that comes out the factory on the road cars is the color that should be painted on the Formula One car. That just makes perfect sense to me. Particularly where I read something the other day to say that, like, the CEO of Road Ferrari actually are trying to put some things in place to stop people wrapping and painting their cars, because I think there's something crazy, like only 40% of Ferrari cars now are actually in that Maranello red or Ross Corsa red or whatever it is. So yeah, to not have the racing team in that same color sounds slightly hypocritical. I realize they're 2 separate entities. It was nice with the bit about Enzo. I think there was another nice bit of history there. Obviously, it was the anniversary of one of his birthdays. The CGI stuff I thought was a bit wanky. I think it was fairly obvious the fact that Ferrari hadn't consulted Lewis Hamilton's design or style team for the event. I think if they'd have spoken to his people, if his people had spoken to their people, I think they would have come up with something very cool. They didn't. The white stripe was clearly there just to make the HP logo look better. Could HP swallow a bit of pride, change the colorway slightly similar to what the Reddit people are doing and kind of work around that a little bit? Maybe, I don't know. That, again, there have been some amazing Ferraris in the past that have had quite a bit of white on them. There was like the 70s with Gilles Villeneuve and Clay Regazzoni. Looked so good. But they'd styled in a little green stripe as well to make it look like an Italian flag. And yeah, good. Could they have done a little green stripe down the other side of it to kind of go, oh, yeah, it's a big white stripe because of HP? But actually, Tifosi.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. It was disappointing, I think. So many iconic Ferraris have kind of been there with the Shell logo and things like that. And that just works nicely with that colorway. Marlboro are the same. To have Lewis in there now and then kind of go, have the design of the car and then just go, oh shit, I was about to get some Tipex out here and just kind of put a stripe down the side of it. Disappointing, I think. Because the front and rear wing look fine. That works really well, I think. But why there is one down the side, I don't know.
No. Well, we know, but we don't know.
No, okay, we do know, but why does it go all the way down as well? There's nothing else under the HP logo that needs to be highlighted.
Yeah, wobber it out or something. Have it like pixelate and disappear or something like that.
You know that red bit on the Ineos bit that you said about that you liked on the Mercedes?
Yeah.
Do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mental.
And then McLaren, who have done nothing.
Yeah, which I'm okay with.
But they came out and said they've done a whole article on their website about the fact that they've done nothing. And that it's deliberately the same livery as last year because champions deserve to, soak up that's what the car looked like one more time or whatever. It's the easy way out. It wasn't an ugly car last year. It's still not an ugly car this year. There's plenty of papaya on it. Yeah. It was fine.
If Red Bull can do it for 5 years, McLaren can do it for 1.
Yeah.
Without people getting up in arms about it, personally.
Yeah. And their segment was a little bit awkward to start because either there was a small delay in them being ready because there was that weird section with Stefano up on like the top podium, and then I think it's Laura Winter started stumbling over oh, we're nearly ready for McLaren, but we're going to have a look at McLaren in a minute, and she tried to say we're not leaving. She tried to say we've left the best till last, but then realized she probably couldn't say we've left the best till last. And then she just started tumbling over a series of phrases and words and mixing them up, and that didn't make sense. And then she went, McLaren. But it was...
We're ready. Fuck.
It was fine. It was fun. I like that they sort of push Zach forward. Zach's a good presence on stage, and it's nice they had the Brundle. Get Martin in there.
Yeah, we need more Martin. We need more Martin. It was nice that there were proper cars on stage as well, that they'd actually made an effort to kind of go, oh, do you know what? We will load a few of these on the back of the wagon and take them with us and show that what we're about. Ferrari could have done the same. Williams could have done the same. Haas could have done the same with their car from 10 years ago if they wanted to. They could have highlighted the fact that that's kind of where they started and where they are now. So, yeah, I like the fact that McLaren made a bit of an effort and kind of went, you know what? We're going to bring you the real thing. We're not just going to give you some kind of etch-a-sketch version from Fiverr to put on the top of the, as you call it, the shower curtain. So, yeah, not bad. Not bad. Would I watch it again? No. If somebody said to me next year, there's tickets on sale for F176, would I get any? No. Do I care that it was an event? No. Do I feel any better for being a Formula One fan for watching it? No. Would I have rather watched a murder series documentary on Netflix for 2 hours on a Tuesday night? Yes.
Yeah. I think that about sums up F175. But hey, we've seen paint now.
Love paint.
That sounds perfect. Hey, we're getting really close to testing as well. And that means we're getting really close to Australia. And it means we're kind of getting close to F1 again, which is kind of nice.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be funny if all of these cars were different when they turned up at Bahrain?
Yeah. Just completely different liveries now.
Just kind of go, nah, it can't be asked. We'll just change it.
If they want to find you on the internet, Dan, where can they do that?
Oh, at Dan Judge. You can find me there. How about you?
There we go. He does cricket stuff. You can find me at Hey Look It's Alex on Twitch. No, not at the minute. So you can wait for a couple of weeks before you can do that. So for the time being,
still follow him though.
Just go to Lapdown Pod on Insta and TikTok and YouTube and go and watch some stuff there and share this with friends and leave reviews and all the rest of it. Do all those good things. And if you want to get more properly involved, you can email lapdownpod@gmail.com and you can send us thoughts and tell us which livery was the best or the worst. Or you can just boo Christian Horner in our emails if you want. You could do that. Or Pirelli or the FIA. For the time being, we'll see you in a week or so and we start talking about testing.
Don't swear.
Please don't swear.